What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Watch It in Action. I'm BouseFeenux, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Lesion.
But Deadpool, we have to go back to the future. I can't, Dr. Emmett Brown. I'm stuck to the back of this explosion. What are you guys doing? Watch the intro.
Cut.
Alright, these intros are seriously getting out of hand. Now, as I was saying before you guys so rudely interrupted my private time, we're going to be covering the Lesion today, which is basically a tipedo that's been fully overcome by infested technology. The Lesion blueprint can be purchased from the market for 25,000 credits and features high slash damage, status chance, and attack speed. It also shares the nifty characteristics of the weapons it was released with, wherein it has its own little built-in buff. Whenever a status proc is achieved with the Lesion, you'll gain a bonus to attack speed and guaranteed Toxin proc for 5 seconds. It's also worth noting that the Toxin procs will combine with any other single elemental on your weapon. As you can see in the video, this weapon pairs wonderfully with Saryn, as those Toxin procs contribute to some of her abilities. On the negative side, however, you'll notice that the Lesion has the shortest attack range of all polearm weapons, and if you include what it takes to make the tipedo, you're looking at a grand total of 3 fully crafted weapons to build this bad boy. Additionally, this is another status polearm and doesn't offer much in the way of critical chance. Thankfully though, the Lesion hits like a truck and the little buff it generates is actually quite useful. Now, enough about all that, let's go ahead and take a look at the build ideas. Okay, so we're back here at the mod screen, and the first thing I want you guys to notice is we actually haven't put any forma on this weapon. It comes with a Y polarity already, which is really nice. It allows us to fit one of the most expensive melee mods that we have on here, and that's primed reach, and we still have 4 capacity left over, which leaves us a lot of room to actually switch out some of these mods and try a couple different builds. So it's kind of nice there that we actually have that Y polarity that saves us a lot of time in formatting and some resources as well. So some of you that are looking to try out this weapon, maybe even try out this build for yourselves, will be able to without any kind of investment, which is really nice, and that's something that I always really like to do for you guys. So taking a look at the stats here before we get into the mods, I want to take a look at the critical chance and just point out that it is extremely low. 5% critical chance is really not enough to build upon for a crit build. Some of you may argue that you could use the body count blood rush build. That's definitely, I mean, sure, you could try that, but honestly, I think your build is better off just going straight forward, kind of like the one we have here. You can try that blood rush body count combo and see how it works out for you, but honestly, I don't really think it's worth it. Especially with only a 2x critical multiplier, and you'd have to lose too much status to crit, which is what we've pretty much built for. So at 84% status chance, that's fairly high. A lot of weapons that are considered status chance weapons probably don't even really have this much sometimes. So this is really nice, especially for a melee weapon that attacks as fast as it does. That's going to ensure you're going to get those status procs there fairly often. Now, the next thing, these physical damage types, we have the impact and puncture. Like I said, the weapon is primarily slash, so these two stats are going to be really low. We have barely any puncture and just a little bit of impact. Not really going to help us out a whole lot, but it does contribute to our base damage, which is fairly nice, and it's increased by the pressure point mod here. And then lastly, we have our elements. I chose to go with a single element and a dual element, which is what I typically do for my status builds. The heat and corrosive is usually good against armor, or you can do corrosive and cold. There's a couple different options there for armor. And then, of course, you can do gas or radiation or whatever you want. This is a high status weapon, so you're going to be getting those procs a lot. It just depends on what kind of situation you're going into that you would have to choose your combined element. But taking a look at the build here in the mods, we're going to be using a primed reach because without it, this weapon is extremely short-ranged. As I said earlier in the video, our range is going to be the shortest polearm range for this weapon. So definitely need a primed reach on here. That's going to help you out a lot. It's going to pretty much double your range from basically 2 meters to a little over 4 meters, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it makes a huge difference, especially since it's basically in a radius around you. Really nice there. Definitely need primed reach in my opinion. Some of you may argue that, but that's just my playstyle. So pressure point is a no-brainer. We're going to use that on every melee build ever. Just increases our melee damage. Body count was a mod that some of you may disagree with, especially those of you that don't use melee like I use it. Some of you just are what's called E-spammers, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just you spam E. That's pretty much how you use your melee. You never really equip it and use it. Body count's pretty much only going to help you if you have your melee weapon equipped and are using it to rack up those combos. And this is really nice. This is a really nice mod because it increases our combo counter, which increases our damage multiplier when we get high enough combos. So I liked having this on here. The weapon doesn't have a whole lot of damage, and this definitely will help out with that. especially if we're going further into some of those endless missions or taking this weapon on sorties. You're going to be wailing on guys a little bit, and the more you hit them, the more you're going to be rewarded for it. So body count is really nice on here. You could probably change this out with a life strike or something like that if you really wanted to, or you can use another 90% elemental mod, something like that. Pretty much whatever you want. There's a lot of different options for this spot here. Fury was kind of a no-brainer for me. The weapon is already pretty fast, and with melee weapons, attack speed translates into DPS, so having this Fury here was a pretty good idea for me at least, and that's just what I thought. And then on top of that, we're also going to get the proc, which is going to increase our attack speed even further. So the fact that we can't run a crit build in Berserker doesn't really matter that much, because you're going to get some really good speed with this. My elements here are just pretty much basic, like I said, heat and corrosive. You can switch these out to anything you want, literally. It just depends on the situation you're in. If you want blast for knockdown and crowd control, that's a really good option for you. I highly recommend trying that. Toxin procs for Saryn, gas, anything like that. There's a lot of different options here, so... Shimmering Blight is going to be the stance that this weapon is actually polarized for. There is another choice here. You got Bleeding Willow. Honestly, I don't like either of the polearm stances. Neither one of them are very good to me. This one is very hard to... The combo isn't super hard to get, but it doesn't really do much for you. It throws you around the map all over the place. It makes it hard to stay and deal consistent damage to one target without flying all over the place. Hopefully soon in the future they will release some better polearm stances. But for now, this is kind of what we're stuck with. So guys, this is the build. There's a lot of different options. This is just my setup. As you saw, it's actually very effective. It works really well. It's super solid. And that's kind of my trademark, is I put together reliable builds for you guys that work and require little investment and are good pretty much all around. So I'm sure some of you are going to have some very specific things to say, and I'd love to hear it. Let's get a discussion started about this weapon, and let me hear what you guys are doing for your mod build. So anyway, that being said, I want to go ahead and improve this build's effectiveness in the simulacrum. We're going to test this against some high-level armor targets. Let's go over and take a look at that. So for this exercise, we're going to be featuring some high-level Corrupted Lancers. These are by no means the toughest enemies in the Void, but they're still fairly formidable, and if you're going to be doing endless Void mission types for any extended period of time, you'll notice that they're quite common as well. Now, I want you guys to notice a few things. The first is that the combination of corrosive heat and guaranteed toxin procs is going to work well against these armor targets. The corrosive strips them of their armor, and the toxin and slash procs will attack their health directly. As we deal with these guys, the effects will continue to stack and allow us to dish out insane DPS. Now, without any critical chance or damage to speak of, this weapon will start to fall off against some of the tougher enemies you'll encounter, but with the high status chance the Lesion possesses, you have a lot of options for crowd control or just dealing with enemies in general. As for my final thoughts, I feel like this weapon is fairly solid, and with the right Warframe, you can have a pretty devastating combo, as evidenced by the Eternal War Valkyr that I'm using, and the Saryn that I was using earlier. We were able to spread the spores really easily, and those Toxin procs added on there work really well for when we're going to use Miasma, and then with Valkyr, she has the Eternal War, which allows us to attack very quickly. Now, if I was going to do something and change this build a little bit, I might add a Life Strike, because as you guys can see here, I'm struggling a little bit to keep my health up. And that's just because these enemies are really high level. They're going to be doing a lot of damage, and, you know, Valkyr isn't invincible unless you're using Hysteria pretty much. So that's pretty much it for this episode, guys. I really appreciate you guys watching. I hope you learned a lot about the Lesion from this. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. That helps me continue to create content like this for you guys. Also, I want to try something a little new today. I want to leave a straw poll down in the description and let you guys vote on which Watch It in Action weapon we do next. If I have a build for it, I'll consider doing it. So I'm going to leave that down in the description, and you guys vote, and we'll decide what Watch It in Action video we do next. But until next time, guys, I'll see you at the next video. Thanks so much for watching.